storygoers, and welcome back to another episode of Tales from the Cartridge. My dog is walking in, the video game storytelling podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Eric Penrod.
I will be the co-host, Ryan Bauer.
And today is another special episode as we have a very awesome guest with us. Without any further ado, is one of the co-hosts of the First Encounter podcast, Haney.
Hey, hi, hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super stoked to be here.
Haney, as we always do, I ask you, how are you? And what have you been playing?
I am very good. Today is a day where I am coming off of about 6 hours worth of crying straight because my lovely co-host and I just finished Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core. Boy, does that just not feel good.
No.
So we played the last chapter today, which is essentially, y'all know what it is. No spoilers, but y'all know what it is if you know. Otherwise, boy, it's upsetting.
It's rough.
So I was playing Crisis Core, but that's for the podcast. So I don't know how much that counts. But for fun, lately I've been swapping back and forth between two of my favorite games that were re-released on Switch this year: Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask and Chrono Cross. So been going just flopping back and forth between those. Right now I'm on Majora's Mask though. This week because I just beat Snowhead Temple, and now I'm trying to remember what to do with like the whole like Great Bay area. I'm like, what do I do here? I'm just like trying to. I was like, there's something with eggs. It's been a while.
There's a pirate fortress and eggs and some turtle. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh my god, the turtle. I forgot about the turtle.
Oh my god. Do you beat each temple without any kind of help or player's guides? Sorry, there's a bunch of birds
I've
chirping.
been trying, but it's not been easy. Snowhead Temple. I was
So
able to do.
hard.
I was able to do. What is the swamp? Why can't I think of what the
Woodfall?
Woodfall, yes. I was able to do Woodfall by myself, but Snowhead I could not get through without the guide because of how convoluted it is in some parts, I guess. Like just like how like layered it is. Yeah.
It just gets worse. It just gets worse and worse. I'm with you. Like I can do Woodfall. I can probably do Snowhead if I had to, or Snowhead. But if it came to Great Bay and Stone Temple, there's no way I can do it by myself. I wish I could.
Same.
There's no way. Yeah. But no, those are awesome, fantastic games that you're playing. So it's always good to hear. Any Majora's Mask. We love Majora's Mask on here. It's like just the best.
Best game.
It's just
Best game.
Best game.
And if you like Majora's Mask, you should go over to the First Encounter podcast because season 2, Chris is playing through Majora's Mask for the very first time. So you get to see a fresh-faced young man taking it on for the first time and falling in love with it. He loves the game and he's just absolutely enamored with it, and it's been very satisfying to watch. And I get where season 1 came from now for him.
And for any storygoers that haven't heard, the first season of First Encounter is all about Final Fantasy VII. Amazing game, right? And you, Henny, you were playing it for the very first time in your life, right?
Yep.
Which is crazy. It was crazy in a good way. Like that's so cool to live vicariously through someone else's experience. Something that you know is amazing and that you love. And I'm living that. I love Final Fantasy VII, but I love Majora's Mask. So I'm actually trying to catch up in your season 2 because I love that Chris is going through it and experiencing it. You were just talking about how he beat the Goron race and he didn't even realize he beat it. And that's one of the worst parts of the. It's one of the hardest parts of the game. I swear.
I still haven't beat it. I just moved on. I was like, I'll come back. Yeah. I'll come back and get this later. It's like
Fury Sword's good.
It's fine. I'm fine right now. I'll just come back every couple of days and get a new guild sword. It's all right.
Yeah.
Razor sword. Razor sword.
Razor sword. Yeah. Well, Ryan, you have lost competition right now. I'm going to ask you, how are you, and what have you been playing?
I cannot. There is no way I can top that. And I am playing the same things I have been playing for some time. V-Rising, vampire survival game, building cool spooky castles. Very fun with some friends. Very good, Haney, if you haven't.
Yeah, I'm giving you quizzical face because this sounds.
If you're into survival-y games, but you're a vampire and you build spooky castles and you go and drain blood, and the blood you drain, warrior blood, and then you fight stronger. But that blood, as you use it, drains. So you have to drain new people, and there's blood percentages. It's real fun. It's real wild. You can play it with friends. It's just you're fighting bosses and building really cool gothic-looking vampire castles. It's very fun.
So the blood is kind of like your resource management for it. That's really
kind
cool.
of, yeah. So there's certain blood percentages. So if you get a 75% warrior, you have more buffs than if you have a 20% warrior. And eventually, we're not there yet. You can imprison really good people and like then just hold their vials. So like you're about to go into battle, let me drink my warrior blood, go into battle.
It's like the fresh blood in Mad Max.
Yeah, exactly. It's very fun, especially with a group of folks. We have a friend our friend Dave, who made a server. So we all just kind of jump on and we're kind of building and exploring. And it's very fun. I've been playing some Grounded, which is another fun survival game where it's like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. You're in a backyard, and it's a wonderful time fighting giant bugs. And then some Destiny. Destiny 2 is a game I go back to pretty frequently this season. It's been spooky and fun. I've been enjoying that a whole bunch.
I've been meaning to pick up Destiny. I need to.
It's a lot. There's a lot going on. It's a big beefy boy, but it's good. It's a good one.
We've used that term. We recorded something earlier, and we kept using the term "big beefy boy" way too much,
or not enough.
Yeah, I'm just hearing that you guys need a new merch piece. Is what I'm hearing.
I think so. Yeah.
Muscle tee for the gym that just says "Big Beefy Boy." Tales from the cartridge.
Boy.
I'd wear it.
Oh my god!
A tank top that said "Big Beefy Boy." That'd be very.
We
good.
have to share that with you now, Haney. You're part of the process.
Just send me one, and it's called.
Okay. One day, if you ever got that big, I would 100% do that.
Absolutely.
It'd be so good. But I'm glad you guys are doing really well. I myself am doing well as well. Nothing really has changed, which is I'm totally okay with. When I do therapy sessions with people, sometimes I say, "So what's new and exciting?" And they say, "Nothing really." And I usually go, "That sounds pretty good." Honestly, sometimes that's okay. You know, that's a good thing. But for myself, all I've been playing right now is Skull on the Switch. It's a roguelite. You play little skull boy, and you kind of go through the world. You're trying to save the Demon King. All the while, you get these different skulls you can wear that change your powers and your abilities, and you upgrade yourself. And it's a lot of fun. I mean, I find it really hard. I think Hades, I felt like I was progressing better, or I could see the progression better than Skull. Skull, I keep dying at the same part, no matter how much I upgrade myself. But I think it's me, just not being very good. Like, there's different skulls, and like, you be more power type or speed type or balanced. I just gotta get better with it. So, but it is a lot of fun. I'm determined to beat it because I've not beaten a game in like months, and I've realized I need to beat a game to feel like a gamer again. So, yeah, it's just a pain in the butt. But
That was
anyway,
on the Switch.
Yeah, Switch and PC. I don't know if it's on anything else, but it's perfect on the Switch. I love it on the Switch.
Switch is my preferred right now.
Yeah,
with PC being next. So. Any Switch recommendations? I'm always looking for Switch recommendations. So
yeah,
toss them my way.
I love Skull. I think it's cheap too. I could be wrong, but no, I love it. If you like roguelites, it's a lot of charm, way more story than I was anticipating. It's very sweet and very kind of sinister in a way. You kind of already know what's going to happen in a sense, or what has happened to lead to this point. It's kind of sad. So like, but it kind of gives it its charm. So it's very good. So, but anyway. Not to go off on a tangent, we have a special episode, another memory card episode. Ryan, this is your. Gotta stop saying like baby boy, beefy boy. This is your baby.
It's my baby beefy boy.
Baby boy.
This is your baby boy. So,
Big beefy boy.
oh God, we're gonna get canceled for something. I already like feel it in the air. You know, like.
If it was to happen to you, it would absolutely be because of an episode I was on.
We'll just like push the blame. Like, it was first account. No, it didn't. Ryan, I'm gonna throw it to you if you want to explain what today's episode is.
This is Memory Card. This is our second Memory Card episode. Memory Card is a new project we've started to kind of, round out our variety of options we have. And Memory Card is a series where we ask people at the games, we're all about, video game stories. And this is a time for us to talk with people who are our friends, who we know, who we really enjoy spending time with, and asking them why they love video games and what those stories mean to them and their own story with games, because I think that's what makes games so meaningful, is that we all find that connection within them. And I asked our friend Haney to join us because I want to hear about the games that are special to them and why, especially because you have, similar to us, have this shared video game experience with a close friend that is kind of a really big part of your life. So I'm really excited to dive in and talk more about the video games that you love and that are important to you.
Me too.
So oftentimes we will start these things off by asking, what is your story or history with video games? Where did you start? How did you get here? What was your progression? What was that all like?
My mom and my oldest brother is about 8 years older than me. when I was, gosh, maybe 3-4 years old, had a Nintendo Entertainment System. And on that NES, my mom would aggressively play through a handful of games that would help her unwind after she came home from work. And she wasn't like a big like gamer, like that wasn't like her thing, but she like the system was there, and she found some sort of kind of like unwinding in a lot of the games she would play, particularly puzzle games. So like some of her big ones were Dr. Mario or Mega Man 3. Milan's Secret Castle was another one, or Zelda. I actually got my love of Zelda from my mom. And the history of games for me is just basically I was raised in that environment, right, where my older siblings were always playing games, my mom was playing games, and so it was basically just always going to happen. So I can't tell you exactly like the first time I put a controller in hand or anything because I was too young, but it was definitely born out of the Nintendo era, and particularly some of the games that like have stuck with me for so long were some of my mom's favorites, like Legend of Zelda, the first one, and Mega Man 3 in particular is very high up in my history of games that have kind of stuck with me for my whole life. So family, really. And then after I was kind of already, I was already like playing games before I was in school and like making friends, and then by the time I was in school and starting to meet people, a lot of other people turned out to like video games as well, and that's how I met Chris. Or part of how Chris and I became friends was we just started hanging out at school and just chit chatting because we were in classes and hanging out at recess and stuff, and then kind of both kind of started talking about our love of video games and stuff, and it just developed from there.
That's so cool. That's so cool. That's based in your family. That is like, and I feel like back then, because you're a child of the '90s, is that correct?
Yep.
Right. Yeah. I think we all are, and it's just it's wild because I feel like video games were not, at least from my perspective, I never saw many adults playing it. The only time I ever saw an adult playing a video game was at Walmart when I would be patiently waiting for, ironically, before Zelda came out and the trial was up.
The demo on the
you get demo, yeah. You can still play in there. There's a Walmart employee, probably in his like late 20s, just sitting there playing it as a 10-year-old Eric stood behind him watching like a creeper. You know what I mean? Like that's the only adult I ever really saw play video games. So it's so cool that you say like your mom like would come home and unwind playing it. Like how now that happens, but that was happening that. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
it's cool.
And, that's how I unwind now. So I get it.
Yeah, and like what an incredible experience where, and I just speaking for myself, like video games growing up weren't something that were seen as a positive thing for you to do in your free time. To have that in your family is really amazing, and is really incredible.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. My mom's my hero. Love my mommy. She's fantastic. I've been thinking about what I want to do I'm a big tattoo person, so I've got full sleeve. I've got my legs done. Yeah, I love yours.
Oh, bad. Yeah, yours are fantastic. Yours are so well done.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the man who did all mine was a good friend of mine who last March passed away from COVID. So I haven't gotten the wherewithal to try to think about getting back into the tattoo life yet. I want more, but it's just I haven't felt ready yet. And it's funny, he was a guy who was just really inspirational to a bunch of and a massive gamer too. Actually, he tried to get me to play Destiny 2 all the time, but he was inspirational to a lot of people in my friend group, and has done a lot of my friends' tattoos as well. And we all are kind of in this like holding pattern right now of like we don't know what to do next, but we know that he wouldn't want us to stop getting tattooed. So it's because he was an artist and he loved his craft. So I've been thinking though, speaking of tattoos, whenever I can find someone that I feel comfortable reentrusting my body with, I've been thinking about what I want to do to get a tattoo for my mom. And my mom had this My mom's a very quirky lady. She's fantastic. She is so fun. She's from the South. She lived in the Middle East for a really long time too, though. So she's got a really wild life. So when she's from Oklahoma, and she met my dad when he was a PhD student at the school she worked at, and he's from Egypt. So they ended up getting married, and they're no longer together. But I have a relationship with my dad now and stuff. But we thinking back to like what it was about like watching my mom play video games that always just like stuck with me. One of her quirks was whenever she could name a character, she would always name it me. M-E, just me. And I would be like, why? Like, what is that, Mom? Like, your name's Doris. Just put in Doris. And she's like, no, it's me. I'm me. And I want to do something with that really badly.
Yeah.
And then I thought something that could be fun would be like a classic arcade style high score screen. And then like my mom's name is like high score, like number 1, but it would just be me. And then all of my siblings' names
so
going down in
cool.
order.
Yeah.
So like my oldest brother, then my sister, then my older brother, then myself as the last one. That's
such
an
a good
idea.
Yeah, that's an incredible idea.
I can see like a classic like Zelda quote, like "Take this sword, me," or like
Yeah,
something like
exactly.
that.
Like it's dangerous to go alone, me.
Yeah. I don't obviously don't know your mother, but like I commend her. Someone that can sit down with Mega Man 3 to relax. Go her, because I would lose my mind. Maybe it's a hard series. I can't.
I don't
Yeah.
remember everything about like where I learned stuff, but I definitely remember that the first swear word I learned was from my mom playing the Snake Man level of Mega Man 3.
So hard.
And I definitely remember saying, and I was like 4, and I said like, I think she said like damn it or something, right? And like nothing like crazy, but then I said it right after, and she just looks at me and she goes no. But I was the youngest of 4, so it was kind of like, oh god, like this again.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
What an incredible start we have there with that being so much a big part of your family and you part of you growing up. And I can even see now as we're talking how meaningful it is just to like thinking back on those times. That's really amazing. What games or game stories had the biggest impact on your life? What things do you remember? What things are meaningful to you? What things do you still think about today?
I mentioned this when we were chatting before the recording that I changed my mind about 5 times today about what game I wanted to land on. And it's really, really hard to just sit down and pick a game. Like I was like, oh, this is gonna be no problem. And then the last, I don't know, couple months since we first talked about me guessing, I've been like pretty dead set on thinking I knew what it was gonna be and then like swapping out. But some of the games that I think have been the most pivotal to me are also some of the most important, like some of my favorite games of all time. So like my like top 5 maybe games of all time are all older games that I played in my youth. And that's Chrono Cross is my number 1 game of all time. It's incredible. It's a phenomenal game. It just got re-released on the Switch. I've been replaying it. It's been so fun. And it's really funny. Me and my brother were talking about this. A lot of people have been giving it flack for being like a lazy port because it's like they barely like did anything. And I was like, no, this is perfect. They didn't change anything. That's what I wanted. But like, so Chrono Cross is my favorite game of all time, and that has a huge place in my heart for being like a really story-driven, important game. After that, Majora's Mask. Unfortunately, I got the rug pulled out from under me already on by Eric on that one. So we don't have we don't have to beat it to death, but it is one of the best stories of any game ever made. Ever.
We'll do more of these and bring you back for Majora's Mask episode.
Love it.
Perfect. Okay, perfect.
Majora's Mask rehash.
Yes, yeah.
Another game that was super important to me, and this one I was thinking about talking about, but it was really hard to figure out. It wasn't really the story that was important to me, but Luigi's Mansion is one of my other favorite games of all time. And it's not exactly... I mean, it's not a heavy story-based game, right? Like, it's very simple story, right? Like, it's oh, the Mario Brothers got tricked. Cool. But the memories attached to that game are so meaningful to me because, like, we did not have a lot of money. My mom was single mom before, but my oldest brother, Sam is a massive gamer, and since he was older than me, he always had a little bit more money. And when the GameCube came out, he surprised me on Christmas with it as my Christmas present. And the game he had bought for me with it was Luigi's Mansion. And it was incredible because my brother gave me this game that's all about brothers, right? Like, and you play as the brother that's not like growing up. My big brother, like, he's Mario, right? Like, I'm Luigi, he's Mario. Like, he's the main character. He's the guy everyone cares about. He's the older one, you know, like whatever. But you play as like the brother that's not the, you know, the one that's always so important, and you're looking out for your brother, and it's just a very meaningful game for me in that way. And I really wanted to talk about it in some capacity, so I'm glad I got to still, but it was just not, it's not really the story, it's more of the feeling, right? Then I would say another game that's super impactful in my life would probably be Mega Man 3 as well, just because it gave me my love of Mega Man and platformers and just so much fun. But the game I want to talk to you about today is probably my favorite JRPG of all time, and that's a game called Skies of Arcadia, which is a phenomenal game that came out on the Sega Dreamcast, and then a couple years later was re-released and restyled as Skies of Arcadia Legends for the GameCube. And that was the first long game that I beat on my own and by myself, and also the one that has one of the best, most impactful stories for me. So I wanted to sit down and talk about that one a little bit.
Awesome. What a wonderful choice. I can't wait to hear more
But
about
like,
it.
actually, this is great because like I just googled it really fast. This sounds so familiar to me. I looked up. I had a magazine. It was probably a Game Informer or something like that, because they were so big in the '90s. At least for me, they were video game magazines. Even if I never played the game, enamored by the artwork. You know what I mean?
I was talking to Chris about this because you know, for the basis of our season 1 was Final Fantasy VII, and then for our Patreon content, we're continuing the Final Fantasy compilation. And the only reason I know that the game Dirge of Cerberus exists was from a Game Informer, because it was the centerfold spread for whatever month when it was like released or announced or something. And I opened it and I was like, I don't know what this is, but that looks awesome. like Vincent looks cool, like the graphics look sick. Like, what is this game? Like, this is awesome. And then I never played it.
You were probably. Have you played? Do you guys plan on playing it?
Yeah.
In the future?
Yes.
Get ready.
I'm ready. So yeah, it's a good one.
It's interesting.
I miss game magazines a lot.
Me too.
I miss getting magazines to a degree too. Like I don't want to like waste a ton of paper and like plastics to get them, but I do miss that nostalgic feeling of like getting off the school bus, going over to the mailbox, opening it up, and this month's issue of Nintendo Power or Game Informer was in there, and like, oh yeah, like that's awesome.
Nintendo Power was just Nintendo
Love
Power was
Nintendo
so
Power.
good. It was so good.
So
but no,
good.
the reason why I mentioned it, because like I remember Skies of Acadia in one of these magazines. I remember the artwork, and I remember just loving how it looked. It gave me such a Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy IX was my biggest one at the time, vibe, that like I never got to play it, but I loved looking at the artwork. The artwork was always like enamoring and like drawing me in. So like it's so cool that you bring this up. I totally forgot this game existed. So this is awesome. So I just want to.
I want to play it with Chris on a future season, so hopefully we will. Depending on how this episode turns out, I'll listen to it first, depending on what we go into on story before I'll determine if Chris can listen to it or not. But yeah, the game is just it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, like why do you feel like it's a great and meaningful story?
So
and we can do full spoilers. Don't worry. Like, you say whatever you need to say.
Yeah, for sure. So so Eric, I know you haven't played it. Ryan, have you played it at all?
I have not.
Big
no.
recommend. It's a standalone game, but it's made by a bunch of developers who worked at Sega for a long time on some pretty big name projects. I think even some like Sonic the Hedgehog people worked on this game, which is funny because it could not be further than from Sonic the Hedgehog. But but the game is centered around a group of pirates who are like Robin Hood like pirates, right? So they're called the Blue Rogues, and you play as the main like the son of one of the main captains of the Blue Rogues, whose name is Vice, and Vice is like a good person, even though he's a pirate, right? But they are trying to stand up to this nation called the Valuan Empire, which is this like massive militaristic dictatorship run by the royal family. The Empress Theodora is her name, and they stand up to the Valuans. They, you know, rob their ships. They'll shoot them down. They'll, you know, try to protect the little guy. And when I first played this game, it was around the time I started falling in love with Star Wars. And the idea of like these little scrappy rebels, you know, just standing up to this massive, just unmoving governmental machine that shouldn't be able to be toppled, and then toppling it is just so good to me, because I don't know, maybe I have a little rebel streak in me or something, but I love the idea that, you know, someone who is little, right, or maybe, you know, quote unquote insignificant, can still stand up and make an impact. And I really gravitate heavily towards games that do that, or media that does that. That's why Star Wars is one of my favorite franchises of all time, and why, you know, I will play any Star Wars game they toss out any day, or watch whatever, no matter how bad I think it's going to be, I'll still watch it. Although I've been pretty happy over the past couple years with Star Wars, for the most part. I would say majority happy. But the story of that, like, you know, ragtag group of little, you know, Robin Hood minded kind of pirates standing up to the big guy and doing it well, and like growing their power by, like, you know, going around and explaining to people like what this massive, you know, empire is doing is wrong, and like winning people over to their side is so good. And I think one of the biggest, and this is like massive plot point spoiler, one of the biggest turning points is when you turn the Empress's own son against her, and it's a very like Star Warsy kind of moment, right? And the son actually becomes like one of your recruitable party members for your straight up party, and he is fantastic. And that point where you're like, you've proven that what they're doing is so wrong that even your own family will like stand up against you, is so good. It's just phenomenal game.
It's so satisfying, right? Like that.
So
like, you can,
satisfying.
Like, it shows the emotional significance of the situation, right? Like you're saying, even this family member will change sides to show that what their family is
what you're doing is wrong. Yeah,
right. And it's a good message too. I mean, something that it's a hard thing to do, even in the real world. When you have a family member that's doing something that you know is not right, to stand up to that, that's a hard thing to do.
It's a crazy hard thing to do. It is. I hat tip to anyone who can do it. Luckily haven't had to ever be in that situation that I know of. But I hope I would have the same strength if I was faced with that moment. But I don't know that I don't know.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
You know, maybe I could look back at, you know, characters like Vice and, you know, games like this and be like, you know, I got to do this because it's what's right.
And like, sorry, Ren.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Especially the games like from the 90s and early 2000s, where like compared to now, where like graphical design helps kind of like enamor you in the world or draw you into the world, right? So it's easier to kind of put yourself in that place and see the story. For games like JRPGs, where a lot of it's like top down or like
blocks, so you're just like looking at like vague shapes of human.
yeah. But for that, like it's still, you can still connect with them. It was, I wouldn't say it was harder. It was different, I think, but still significant. Like it was just such a medium that I felt like was so overlooked by so many people, but it's such great stories to share. You know, like I remember like Final Fantasy 9, people, like I had friends that would look at it like, this game looks really weird, I don't want to play this. But it had such a great story to it. And like the point I'm trying to make is like, it's just back then I feel like it's so much harder to get someone to be invested in such a world, but it was such a big payoff. You know, like you get to learn such a huge lesson.
Yeah. I 100% agree. I absolutely love bad graphics, quote unquote, or like, you know, old graphics. It's like, I mean, the games I've rattled off are all super old, I feel like, but I have played newer games. Fallen Order is a phenomenal game and I love it. I feel like I need to say that.
So good.
Yeah, it's very good.
So good.
I also played Hades. That was really fun.
Oh, Hades, I can't. Yeah, so good.
But I tend to gravitate towards games that don't rely on graphics as a crutch to hide, you know. And I don't want to make it sound like that's an accusatory thing. Like that's what, like if something has good graphics, that means it's bad. Like no, like look at like Horizon, like those games, like the Horizon like Zero games, like those are beautiful, and I've heard they're phenomenal. I haven't played them, I really want to, but like they're not hiding anything. that's perfect, right? They're just taking a holistic approach to making everything about it good, right? But when you have technological hurdles, like you know, Final Fantasy VII, for instance, was originally intended to be on the N64. No way. Like that game, absolutely not, right?
I
Like
had no idea.
Yeah, so it's actually
Wow.
7 was the first departure from Nintendo for Square, I believe.
Wow.
Maybe don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's what that is true. But I do know that it was supposed to be on the N64. I'm just not sure if it was the first
Wild.
departure.
I couldn't even picture that.
No, like are you gonna give me 6 of the like of the cartridges? Like how am I gonna how am I gonna play through the whole game? But like I think that was one of the major issues was like capacity, right? Like they could not store the story they wanted to tell on that size of disc, and they weren't willing to compromise on it, right? And I think that's one of the things that I appreciate most about that time of gaming was no compromise, right? Like if and it, I mean, the no compromise drove graphics and drove advancements in technology, because like we want to tell bigger, better, more beautiful games. We have to have bigger, better systems to handle those games, right? And it's really good, but I still tend to gravitate towards games, especially modern games like indie games, where they're pixel-based art or something where it's like something that really someone put like a lot of individualistic love into. You know, like one of my favorite games to just like sit down and relax to is Stardew Valley, which, you know, all made by one man, and that's incredible. Incredible.
Yeah.
And like I don't know if you guys know why he made it, but he and a girl he was seeing after he finished college, he had gone to school to be a developer, and he was trying to find development jobs in like 2012 2011, somewhere in there. And he was dating this girl, and they loved playing Harvest Moon together, and then the whole Harvest Moon like weird like rights issues, I guess, started happening. Like I don't know the full extent of like that, because I never played Harvest Moon, but because of that, it made it so that like Harvest Moon would never be like resurrected again. So there would never be new games. But he wanted something to play with his girlfriend, and he also needed to work on his development portfolio while he was searching for jobs. Ended up making Stardew Valley and didn't need a job, it turned out, because that game is phenomenal.
It's incredible. Yeah.
It's so cool. And it's just like, you know, when people when you take away like the ability to just hide bad story behind like beautiful like pictures, it's you know, you can really focus down and be like, this story is exactly what you wanted to tell, and you didn't really need like the beautiful graphics to tell the story. You just needed the medium to be able to like paint your picture, and I love it.
Right. And you're so right. Like when you said that, we talked about how like, you know, there was no compromising back then for the story you wanted to tell. Even for Nintendo, like even through Majora's Mask, you needed a special Rumble Pack to put into your N64 in order to play it. I remember a lot of people I knew had bought just the game, did not have the Rumble Pack, and had to wait because they couldn't find it. So,
my brother, I remember my brother buying it the day it came out. We went home, he put it in, and then started reading the manual, and he was like, we need to go back to Ames. And my mom was like, why? And he was like, I need another piece.
That sentence alone is so...
We need to go back to Ames.
We need to go back to Ames to get a Rumble Pack for our...
I haven't heard about Ames in so long.
Ames was the best store. It was so bonkers. It was like better Walmart. I remember like we bought everything there. Like that's where I got clothes, like toys and everything. But like I remember my mom used to buy me, because like my big brother, both my big brothers and my big sister all loved G.I. Joe. So they all had like the 80s like legit G.I. Joe action figures. I didn't, though, because G.I. Joe had fallen out of favor by the time I came around. So they weren't making really like G.I. Joe. So what I got were these Ames branded G.I. Joe knockoffs called Core. There's like CORPS, and a ton of people had these too. And like it was just like you would get these like action figures, and they were so good. Whoever made Ames, shout out to you.
Shout out to Ames.
I guess. Unless you suck, then I take it back.
Yeah. Do you think there's a reason? I mean, you've kind of described why you're drawn to those older games. Do you think there's a reason you're drawn to the games where it's kind of, and it sounds like media, where it's the little guy versus the big guy? Is that something that you feel like you connect to? Is that something you feel like really engages you? Do you think there's a reason behind why you're so interested in those types of media, or that narrative?
Yeah, I think so. I wouldn't exactly say that I'm like from a marginalized group of people necessarily. I'm pretty white passing, so like most people don't blink an eye or anything at me. But I am Arab American, and I was growing up in post 9/11 America. That can be pretty rough on an 11-year-old, right? I didn't understand what was happening, and I didn't get it at the time, but part of my experience of who I was and as a kid was just wanting to stand up to bullies, right? Like, because like people were mean and I didn't really feel like I had to fully grasp that until I was kind of faced with it more post 9/11, and I was like, wow, some people are bad. I don't like people and all the time, and I wanted to just kind of throw myself into situations where I felt like I had some sort of power or control where I could fight back. Because I'm not the kind of person that's going to fight back in real life. I can tell you honestly right now, I have been in 2 fist fights and I lost both of them. And I was also 11 and 13 at the times. But I'm not someone who's like who swings easily or gets into fights or really like does much of the like sticking my head out or standing up, but I always want to be. And what better way to do that than to put yourself into a situation like when you're controlling someone like Vice or someone like Cloud or someone like Zach, where you're in this situation where you can be standing up to these people that are doing wrong, right, and aren't doing right by humanity as a whole, and you can do something about it, right? Because I feel like this is probably a very shared experience among a lot of people, but the feeling helpless, like and with the current state of the world, and that's not like just today, but like anytime you're a person that's living in the world, there's a current state of the world, right? And you probably feel helpless at some point because something happens, like the people of Pompeii and 89 AD felt very helpless and powerless, right? And like and just as much for different reasons as we did, or we do or have throughout time. Yeah, it's just being able to just not be helpless feels really nice, and I think that's why I get drawn to those characters, and like I don't want to be like the biggest toughest guy who's just like like Barrett would be like the person you would think of like for Final Fantasy 7, like, well, he's the big one, he's the strong one, he's the tough one. But it's not just the toughness of it, it's the willingness to like put your foot down and stand up, and sometimes it has nothing to do with physical strength, right? And that resonates a lot with me.
Yeah, especially for that example too with Barrett, like he has a daughter, like he has things that he could lose, and but he's so passionate.
Yeah,
and I think that's what Final Fantasy Remake does so well. Final Fantasy 7 Remake is that they really do show like
oh,
like
yeah.
Oh,
I haven't played Remake yet, and it's on the list.
Oh no, I'm just saying from the very beginning. It's the same thing that happens in the very beginning of the game, the original. It's just like he's just so cool. But you can like kind of like see it, like you envision it in the first game, like in the original. But like he's very passionate. He's like, you gotta save the planet, like, and that's what. Sorry, didn't mean to scare you.
No.
Nothing new.
I'm so ready. Trust me, I'm so ready to play that game. But no, I totally agree. Right, like with Barrett, it wasn't about just because he was big and strong and capable. It was because he had something to give a shit about, and that's that's awesome.
I want to know more about this game, about this story, about some of the things that happen in it that are like interesting and engaging and like kind of embody that. Because I think as you're talking about this, even personally, reflecting on my own game experiences and reflecting on like my experience growing up and feeling absolutely helpless in what was going on around me, I too, like similar to you, not in this moment, I haven't thought about it, like we're drawn to similar narratives of that power, of that, wanting that power and wanting some power in the world. So tell me more about this experience in this game and how some examples of that.
So this game starts out just absolutely like out of the gate, like ready to like to be jumped into, because it's not one of those games where you're playing, you know, that kind of titular hero and you have to grow, you know. And I'm not saying that Vice doesn't grow, because he does, but he's already got the embodiments of what's right, and he's part of an organization already that is trying to do what's right, the Blue Rogues. And you know, it's a family thing. His dad's, you know, a Blue Rogue. Actually, funnily enough, his dad's name is Dine, which is another character from Final Fantasy VII as well. But but I guess, which I've never heard as a name. But anyway, but you start off with Vice and his best friend Aka, and she's another Blue Rogue. She lives on the same slice of land that you do, and the kind of setting that you're in is you are a sky pirate. And I feel like I didn't mention that. So the game is called Skies of Arcadia, and it's because you inhabit a realm called Arcadia that is basically, instead of open ocean, it's open sky. And then in that sky, islands or continents are just floating chunks of like landmass that are in this realm. And there's six kind of large empires that are, or civilizations, I believe is the term they use, that exist in this realm, and each is color coordinated to one of the 6 moons that orbit this realm. So there's red, green, blue. Hold on one second. Oh boy, red, green, blue, purple, yellow, and silver. Nailed it.
Ooh, silver. I was surprised with silver.
So what happens is, thousands of years before Vice, all of the civilizations were super technologically advanced, and they put all of their efforts into making war machines. And eventually, each of them got to the point where they could make a giant monster that was representative of their nation to fight for them, and it's called the Gigas, rather. Sorry. And each Gigas is powered by a piece of that nation's moon, so it's called the moon crystal. And what had ended up happening was, after just like unknown amounts of time of just inner war between all of these civilizations, the Silver Nation used their Gigas, which is unfortunately the most powerful, to bring something called the Rains of Destruction, which ended up decimating everything. They kind of, in a similar way to like what you would hope, or what you would hope would happen after like the deployment of like a nuclear weapon or something. They kind of took a look at it and they were like, we like never again. Like this cannot ever happen again. Like we fucked up. Sorry. And
it's okay.
We messed up. And so what they do is they lock away their crystals. They lock away the Gigas, and they set about kind of isolating themselves, rebuilding their nations up, and then starting to slowly reintegrate as a world. And when you're dropped into it, most of the worlds get along pretty well, except for one, because always, right? And that's the Valiant Empire, and they live under the yellow moon, and they are kind of, each of the moons give like a kind of an innate elemental abilities. So if you're under the yellow moon, electricity. If you're under the blue moon, you know, water. Red moon, fire. So on and so forth. And you're kind of dropped into, so that's like the background, right? And where you are, you know, a couple thousand years later, the nations are mostly at peace, but except for the Valiant Empire. And the Valiant Empire is what everyone wants to stand up against, because they are kind of starting to regress towards building up the biggest army, building up the biggest military, being the, you know, getting the idea that they are better than others. And the Empress ends up deciding that she wants to raise all of the Gigas again and find all the moon crystals that power them that have been hidden away, in order to control not just their own, but all 6 of them, and take over the entire world. And no one really likes that except for the Valuans, as you can guess. So what this is starting to spread, and like word of this is starting to spread, and what happens is the Silver Civilization, which has been kind of like lost because they kind of like really like sealed themselves away due to their sins, essentially, sends a representative to retrieve all of the crystals to prevent the Valiant Empire from repeating their own mistakes. And which is, it's actually really good. So they send this representative named Fina, and she unfortunately gets kidnapped by the Valiant Empire. And you're kind of dropped in, like from the first minute, into a fight on a Valiant warship where you are rescuing her, not because you like know she's there, but because you're just pirates and you're just on a ship like doing pirate stuff, and you're like, we gotta rescue this. Yeah, like she's obviously like not part of their empire, like let's just take her with us. And she kind of reveals all the background that I just gave you to the main characters. And from there, it's basically the three of them have decided to take a ship, sail the seas, and collect the moon crystals and stop the Valiant Empire from basically repeating history's mistakes. It's so good, guys. I want you to play it.
So cool.
Yeah, it sounds really cool. Yeah.
You said it's on the Switch now too?
It's not, unfortunately. But with all the Sega
sure.
re-releases, and since it was a GameCube game, or it was re-released as a GameCube game at some point, I'm really hopeful.
There's hope.
I'm really hopeful that it'll either get re-released as part of the GameCube collection one day or as part of the Dreamcast collection one day, but we'll see what happens.
Oh, fingers crossed. I don't know. I was actually looking up a little bit as you were talking, and like, I love the concept art for it. Like, it's so good, and even just like the screenshots from the game itself. It's just so like 90s old school. Like, it just brings me back, in a way. Like,
oh yeah, it's so good. It's turn-based combat JRPG. It has two kind of styles of combat. It has person-to-person combat, and then it has ship combat. And the ship combat was what really intrigued me as a kid, and probably still would now. But it was, it's instead of equipping your party, you're equipping your ship with like different kinds of cannons, and like you can go to a gun or a shipyard, and you can get like long nines, or you can get elemental cannons that can be infused with cannons, and you have to like think about like the defenses of your ship, and like it's like almost an extension of your party, and you have to equip it properly too. And it was very cool, and it was very new to me at that point. So I was like, this is good.
It's cool. Yeah. I love when games they push the boundaries and made you think outside the box of like, is that yeah, because like even the Final Fantasy games, I don't remember having to upgrade any airships or anything like that.
Not up to 7. At least, or not at 7, which is the only one I've played. But like, all I can think of is like gummy ships in Kingdom Hearts. But we don't have to talk about that.
Ships.
Yeah, that's fine.
The one thing I didn't like about Kingdom Hearts, well, the original game at least.
Yeah,
was this your?
I was just gonna say, yeah, I think that was, as far as Kingdom Hearts 1 goes. I think that was the only thing I really didn't love about the initial pass of it. I did try. I bought the cloud edition for the Switch, and I wasn't stoked on that for Kingdom Hearts of like and it's not like nothing with like the gameplay. It was really just like the choice they made to like make it a cloud only game. So like if you lose like internet connection, it gets like really weird, and like I wasn't a huge fan of how it rolled out. So like kind of a bummer. I don't think I'll continue playing it on the Switch, which was a bummer because I was really like looking forward to like doing it with the console that I really like right now. But I would love to revisit it just for like PS2.
I would say, yeah, I have it for the PS2, and so not to go off on a tangent with this, but like those Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 are just such special games, I feel like, that like I just, yeah, I need to go back and play those as well. And now that you're talking about it, I just feel like I've had it in the back of my mind for a while, but now I feel like I'm jonesing for it. But like, yeah, and Kingdom Hearts 3 can just go away forever, in my opinion, and never come back.
I haven't played it, and I just don't think I can bring myself to, because like don't make me wait 13 years or whatever it was for a sequel, like especially when you have a teaser trailer for that sequel at the end of it. But like I guess at the same token, and because I haven't played it and I haven't spoiled any of it for myself, I don't know, but we're talking about no compromise, right? And maybe they felt it took that amount of time to tell the story they wanted to tell, and make the thing that they wanted to make. And I can't begrudge them that, but boy, that's a really long time.
Yeah, I don't even mind that. It's the fact that, and this is known before the game came out, I believe. And if not, it's probably good to know before you play it. But like, there's no Final Fantasy characters.
Yes, I did hear that. It's just Disney, right?
It's just Disney, and I think that's what made Kingdom Hearts so special, is that they had those Final Fantasy characters mingling with. And so, yeah, Kingdom Hearts 3 has none of that. And I just felt like it was such a... I just didn't... The characters alone, from my personal opinion, the Kingdom Hearts characters alone did not hold up the story without the help of Final Fantasy. So it was just a letdown for me. Yeah.
You're saying that Goofy can't hold his own?
No, Goofy can. It's like
it's Sora, isn't it?
Axel and Roxas and like these characters that they think that we love, and I'm sure many people do. For me though, like I would much rather have Cloud talking to me than Axel or someone.
It's like for me. Sorry again. I promise I'll
no.
But for
no. This is your time. You talk about whatever you want.
This is a safe place.
I feel safe.
Yeah, good.
For me, it's the same thing though. The mix was what made it magical because
Exactly.
there's nothing wrong with a Disney game. I'll go play a Disney game if it's good, but that's a Disney game. That's not what makes it special. What makes it special is whatever's in the Disney game, right? But when you take something as radically different as Final Fantasy and Disney, and you're just like, we're doing it. We don't care. No consequences.
Yeah.
And like,
it's wild.
The audacity of that. Like, I don't know who had the idea, if it was Nomura or if it was someone at Disney, probably Michael Eisner at the time. But like, I don't know, like, you know, whose idea it would have been. But like, whoever that person is, like, gotta applaud the audacity of like that morning they woke up, walked into some sort of planning room, and just threw that out there, and someone else was like, I think we can make that work.
I know the idea, like literally, it's insane.
Wild.
Like, so weird. Like Hercules fighting Cloud, like that
so
was so cool. Like, you know, like it was just amazing.
I told Chris once that Phil was my favorite Final Fantasy VII character, and he tried to
Very good.
That'd be awesome. He's just coaching Cloud the whole game.
Yeah. Come on, Cloud, get your memories back.
Just Danny DeVito.
Yeah. And for some reason, he's the only one with a voice actor in the game. No one else does.
Yeah.
It's just a regular 7, but Danny DeVito also.
It's very good.
Do it in a remake, I dare you, cowards.
Was Skies of Arcadia your first like RPG experience, or do you have anything before that?
I think it might have been. I definitely played it before Chrono Cross. And it's funny. I think I might have said at the top of the episode that Skies of Arcadia was my favorite JRPG, completely disregarding the fact that that Chrono Cross, my favorite game of all time, is 100% a JRPG, and that just registered in my head. Sorry about that, but like, I don't know. The two games are so radically different. I don't really like. They're not in the same category for me. Like, they have the same format, but they're not the same category. And I do believe that this was my first long game that I beat by myself, and also I believe it was my first RPG. It was either a toss up between Skies of Arcadia or Grandia 2. I can't remember which one I played first, but I loved. We had a Dreamcast as well, that one of my brother's friends had given him, and we had Skies of Arcadia and Grandia 2 at the get-go, and then my brother got some other games. I think when I played, I don't know if this is accurate. I want to say when I played Xenogears for the first time, it was on Dreamcast, but I feel like maybe it was a PlayStation exclusive, but it feels like it was on Dreamcast that I played it, but I could just be wrong. But like those games, it's really funny that I never played Final Fantasy VII, because like Xenogears and like Grandia and like Skies of Arcadia just like all like right around it at the exact same time.
Yeah.
So like if you look at the release dates, it's like 97, 98, 99, 2000. It's like I probably should have picked it up at some point, but
they're also long though, you know, like, so
yeah.
to put you off, like they're also like, you just talking about how like this is like your first long game. Like my first long game was Final Fantasy 9, and it took me forever to beat that game.
Oh yeah,
like,
this probably an easy year to beat this game for me. Like, especially I was like, oh god, since I was playing it on the Dreamcast, it's probably like 11, maybe 12, but yeah, I believe it was my first like exposure to turn-based combat. Which, yes, it was. It was 100% my first exposure to turn-based combat, because I remember sitting there and waiting and nothing happened. And I was like, when's the fight start? Like, what am I doing? What a treat.
Yeah, right?
It's a great game. I wish I could share it with everyone and just be like, please play this game. I will buy you. Yeah. I will buy you whatever you need to play it. Play it.
Yeah.
Who published it? Who was the publisher?
It was Overworks, I believe was the name of the company.
Okay, I was trying to think like, well, is this possible for this to come back out on the Switch? Like, is there anything that hold it back from being able to be released? But I don't think I don't think so.
Yeah, it was a Sega and Overworks. So it was published by Sega. So since they're doing all the other stuff, have they announced that they were going to do a Dreamcast module or something for the Switch?
I don't know.
Because I know they have
I haven't heard.
the Genesis, they have the N64, they have Nintendo and SNES. So like logically, it makes sense to me that they could eventually do like GameCube and Dreamcast too. But I just don't know. But like if they do Dreamcast or GameCube, like most of my favorite games are just about to become viable again. And I'm very excited for that.
Yeah.
Seriously. Oh, okay. Well, I saw I was looking up an article and it's like Dreamcast games could come to Switch according to Sega, and I was like, oh, cool. And I looked at it as like 4 years ago, so hopefully soon.
That sounds about right in business world. I was gonna say
any day now. Any day now.
Can you imagine it? Like I hear, I don't know if this is true. I heard there's a rumor that there could be a Nintendo Direct at the end of this month in June. What if this comes between as the N64 built up its library, and GameCube will probably next year at some point. What if the Dreamcast is right in the middle there?
It's my year. It's my year.
It's your year. It's your year.
The year of Han.
That's right.
Chrono Cross Majora and then Skies Arcadia. Nothing better.
If they put Luigi's Mansion on there, I'm done.
I know. Oh, man.
Have them all in the palm of your hand.
Oh,
yeah.
so good.
I'd have to go back on that too fast. I never talked about Skies of Arcadia, but like just touching base really fast about Luigi's Mansion. I never fully beat the game, but I love that game just for the atmospheric alone. Like Luigi being in that situation was just such a huge weird turn of events for Mario, but like it was just so good. And it's just so creepy.
Good.
Like it's so good. Yeah.
I was actually reading earlier. I think it was the highest grossing GameCube game.
Wow,
and it has
that's awesome.
Absurdly high ratings. It's like it's like 4.8 out of 5, like 9 out of 10, like 9.5 out of 10, like like A minuses, like that's really good for like a like a spin-off like non like main entry Mario game. Like I think that's fantastic.
It's amazing. It beat Melee. That's what blows my mind. I'm not surprised it didn't beat Wind Waker because like I know people were kind of down on it when it first came out, but like the fact they beat Melee that's wild.
Yeah. Melee's great too.
Melee's so good. Oh, so good. Special place.
Leaving the GameCube on for like 3 days straight to unlock Mewtwo.
Yeah. Oh my god, you're right. Just be overheating and just be
because it was like time based, right? You had to like play for like 200 hours or something. And I remember just like leaving the GameCube on. I was like playing. Mm-hmm. Let's see if this works.
That was a wild requirement too. Like that was.
I love the wildness of yesteryear, like
of that time.
So good.
It's so funny too because you start poking down like little things like that where like if you're not playing it with a guide or something, you're like, how did anyone figure any of this stuff out?
Right?
Like ever?
Yeah. Well, I mean, players guides are so prominent back in like the 90s. So when I moved 2 years ago, almost going on 3 now, but I was selling some stuff so I didn't have to bring so much to Maine from Pennsylvania, and I realized I had so many players guides. I sold a bunch of my players guides and got a lot of money from them, and they're still in demand right now. Like it's just like how prominent they were. I had like 5 different copies of Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time players guides from like Nintendo Power and Brady Games and like whatever. Like
Brady Games was always my go-to.
Yep, Brady Games is fantastic. Yeah.
I still have my Brady Games. I have my Brady Games Majora's Mask, my Brady Games Chrono Cross, and my Brady Games Skies of Arcadia is in rough shape. It is mostly duct tape at this point, but if I remember, I'll try to send a picture to you guys of it. It's very fun.
Please do.
And my Chrono Cross one isn't faring much, but my original Chrono Cross one. I have my original Chrono Cross one, and then I have one for daily use. And then Chris, when I beat FF7, Chris bought me the original FF7 Brady Games guide as a present.
Well, that's so
wow.
cool. Yeah,
they're just so special. The players guides are so special.
You know what it was for me, really, about the players guides? I was really into art when I was younger, and still, I don't know why I said was. I do all that. Like I do not all, but I do most of the art for First Encounter, and I went to college for art, so still pretty into it. But the concept art, especially from Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, was what like made me fall in love. Like I remember so distinctly the like hard graphic lines and like rough cell shading of the Running Man in Ocarina of Time. Like later, Monsieur Postman, but like I just remember so clearly like that image sticking with me for so long, and then like all the mask art and so good,
Yes,
so good,
so good. I'm right there with you. Actually, there was a game series. I'll look it up as we continue to talk. I feel you. Like for me, it's like Final Fantasy 9, like I said, Majora's Mask, Ocarina of Time. Like I even had the Final Fantasy 9 art book. Like it was just looking at the artwork in these players guides and in these magazines that was just like it was so special. Like it's something that kind of invoked this kind of sense of happiness even when I didn't play the games. Like it was like it was just wild. Like it just brought us that's a cool. Oh, so the game I'm talking about is Rival Schools. Rival Schools is an old, not old, but like it's a '90s fighting game. The premise is wild. It's like different high schools. There's kids in there who just fight each other, and it's wild. But the
sounds
art,
like
and I never played it. Yeah, what was that?
I don't know if you either of you are anime fans, but there's an anime and manga called Tenjo Tenge, and it's essentially just like kids fighting in high school. Actually, I feel like that's a pretty common anime trope. Ramen one half. Ikitosen. Yeah, there's a lot of them actually.
There's a lot of them. Yeah, you're right. But yeah, like I never played this game, but the artwork was just so enthralling and just so good. And like I just would love to just look at the pictures and look at the artwork and like just see how good it was. And yeah, it's just special. Like it's just it's such different times now where like you go on YouTube and look at a walkthrough on how to beat something that you're stuck on compared to having the player's guide and having to read it and be like, how do I put this to what I'm doing? And sometimes it didn't connect in the way the player's guide was trying to tell you, and sometimes it did, but like it was just a different time for sure. I miss it.
Oh man, and like yeah, like not being able to just like load up YouTube and like go to that. Like so this is the house I'm in right now is my childhood home. I bought it from my mom 7 years ago, I think, something like that. So like I have a lot of memories in this house, but one of the not so awesome memories is the dial-up internet until 2012 where I am. And so like YouTube was like, even after it came out, was not an option for me for like looking things up. And like if I wanted to, so like game FAQs was where I would go like all the time, right?
Oh yeah,
but like
a lot of time there. Yeah,
waiting like 20 minutes for the web page to load so that I could scroll down, because I'm like, oh gosh, I'm like, you know, I'm like 10 hours in, or I'm like 20 hours in, like I'm gonna have to scroll through. And like this was like HTML like 3 before they knew how to like do hyperlinks, and oh god, what a mess.
Yeah. Oh dude, I don't miss that. I miss everything else but that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I violently remembered something about this game that was so great. If either of you had about Skies of Arcadia in particular, if either of you had a Dreamcast growing up, do you remember it had the little screen on the controller?
The little screen. Oh yeah.
And one aspect of this game was that Fina, the third person to join your party, the representative from the Silver Civilization, she has this little living weapon that she has. He's like a bio machine. His name's Koopel, and he eats these things called chams. And whenever you get a new cham, it's how you upgrade her weapons. So like everyone else, you can just go buy a new weapon or you find a weapon, right? But like her, you have to go and hunt chams. And they're not like super hidden, but what they would do to alert you was like your controller would vibrate, it would make a pinging noise, and on the screen you would get this little like outline of Koopel like I'll like Pac-Maning like he wants food, and that's how you knew you were near a cham.
Yeah.
And then you would like get it, and you would like look down at the screen, you could see him like eat it and then like grow, and it was like a little Neopet like embedded in your controller.
Yeah.
It was so good.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was very cool. I think did they also have, I don't know if you've ever played the Sonic Adventure games. Wasn't there some Chow stuff on there too?
So I've never played a Sonic game.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
This is
Don't worry.
Interesting.
This is
interesting.
bonkers, I know, but but yeah, I could totally see like that view is like a perfect little like thing to have, like just those little like sides,
Yeah.
just like it's one more thing to enhance the game, right? Just like one more thing.
Yeah.
Couldn't you again, I remember my Dreamcast days. Could you take it out as well, and it could be its
Yeah,
own
I
thing?
think so.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
thought.
What?
Yeah. It was really cool. It was a wild time. It was very
And
cool.
then you could load the
Dreamcast
Game
was
Shark
such a
into
fun
it
system.
too, if I remember right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Oh,
I never had a
Oh,
Dreamcast.
man.
I did not live these glorious moments. I didn't know you could do any of
Yeah.
that. That's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah, Dreamcast was a magical machine.
I might go down an eBay rabbit hole later, but I also saw what this game costs on Dreamcast, and I do not have it on Dreamcast anymore. I still have my GameCube one, but I do not have the Dreamcast one
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
And boy, I don't know if I want to make that investment. It was like, I think the cheapest one I saw at a quick glance was like $120, and I was like, oof.
Wow.
But it's really worth
Yeah.
it. But oof, and it's gonna be used, so I have no idea what condition it's in.
The quality.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like it was, CD days, so like God knows what the back of it looks like, when you get it.
Mhm.
There's always the fear.
'Cause,
Always.
Like I remember just like I didn't like I probably should have respected the things that I owned more, but like I remember just taking the disc out, tossing it to the side, putting the next disc in. And then eventually, like, I think I ruined a DVD or something, and that was when I was like, you need to put cases. Like, you need to put your stuff back in cases.
Find its home.
Yeah. Yeah, great stuff.
Yeah, so good. So for you, Henny, why do you feel like, and we kind of touched on this already, so if we're being a dead horse, let me know, but why do you feel like overall video game stories are important? And when I say that, it could be like towards you, towards the world, whatever that means for you.
I think video game stories are important in the same way that any story is important, right? Like any piece of media, any oral tradition, anything. You can convey so many different things, right? You can convey morality tales, right? Like you can in video games just as easily as you could in anything else, religious text or a book that has a particularly like strong like ethical like backbone or anything like that. You can portray things like like here's what happens if we don't get better, right? Like that's like one of the things I love about FF7 is like the entire basis of it, starting out at least, before it kind of gets more into the metaphysical stuff, is they're eco-terrorists that are mad because a massive company is stripping natural resources from a world. Like that's not like a far out concept, and like and that game came out 15 what was it no not 25 years ago now, something like that, right? I think this would be 25.
Yeah.
So that, and like that hasn't gotten better, but like you could tell that story, like in the same way that like one of my favorite movies is Princess Mononoke, which is a very similar story, like telling the story of what happens when you don't live in harmony with nature or with or when you don't respect things. And in any sort of storytelling, right, it doesn't matter what the media is or what the venue is, right? Like it can be just like us telling each other stories from our childhood. It can be us playing, video games and learning a story from there, reading a book, listening to a podcast, listening to the radio, listening to songs, anything that just lets someone express or in the case of video games, typically several people express what they want to say, and have people sit down and listen to it, or sit down and play it, or sit down and read it and take it in. And it's a very, I think, respectful sign to play or read or listen to something that someone else has created when they want to tell a story. And it can pay back that person's work in a way with, maybe not financially or quite literally, but the idea of being able to, reach out to someone and be like, hey, I loved what you did, and have that person be like, this, like that makes it for me. Like, that's the reason I did this, was because you love it, is just as important in video games as it is in any other media, in movies, TV shows, books, songs, podcasts, anything that any venue that you can use to tell a story is important. And I think in video games, it's funny because like I feel like there's not a lot of video games that don't have a story, but there's a lot of video games that don't need a strong story, right? Like there's a lot of like first person shooters that definitely have a story. They're trying to say something. They're trying to I'm not in any way trying to like like poo poo FPSs or anything. I love FPSs, but like they might not need to tell a very long convoluted story to get their point across, but they might still have a story to tell. And I one of the things that I immediately came home and did. Chris is not listening to this episode at all. I just realized because one of the other games I wanted to play is the Halo series. But after finishing Crisis Core today, Crisis Core, again, massive spoilers, ends with you cannot beat the game. You die. Because that's what happens, right? And there's not a lot of games that do that, right? From a story. But one that always sticks out to me is Halo Reach. And the ending of Crisis Core and the ending of Halo Reach are very hand in hand in how they're executed. And unfortunately, that's also quite literally how they're executed. But it's I feel like I'm probably rambling a little bit, but like it's just that like a lot of people don't think about Halo for the story, or they didn't once upon a time. It was an FPS, right? Like whatever. I'm gonna load it up, play multiplayer with my friends, never touch the campaign or something, right? But like there's still a story in there, right? And turns out it's actually a very good story. It's a very, very good story. But just being able to say what you want to say in a way like where maybe you can't just speak it, right, and have people listen, but you can put it into a game that they can play and digest and still take away, and maybe you weren't speaking directly to them like you would be in another venue or on some other kind of media, but you're still imparting something of yourself on them. And I love the kind of shared human oral tradition, right? And it's kind of the next like human evolution of oral tradition is kind of visual media and written text and all this, right? And video games are so cool because they can combine all three of those into one thing, right? You can have oral tradition and amazing writing for a story, and beautiful like visuals that all tell work in tandem to tell a story. And it's just like it feels like we haven't lost the thing that really like made us human, which was like getting together and talking to each other and telling each other stories and imparting something from ourselves about like this was my experience, and maybe you can take something away and learn from it, or this is this morality tale from even 10,000 years before me is even if it, who cares if it happened or it didn't happen, right? The morality is the important thing, right? It's like don't hurt people or something like that. Like it's just, I love storytelling, which is why I fell in love with you guys' podcast. So like this is like I can gush forever about this, but like it's video games. I think what I would want to impart, my little piece that I would want to impart on your listeners is video game stories are important because they're as important as any other story, and anyone who wants to tell a story has every right to tell that story, and has I hope that at least one person listens to them, right? And
right.
And maybe the story is not good, maybe it needs work, maybe it's got the wrong idea or something, right? But you should still be able to tell it.
It's so interesting that you say that about, especially about Halo Reach, because like I almost had I don't know if this is appropriate anymore. I'm gonna say it just in case, then I'll get rid of it not. But like, a Vietnam flashback, so to speak, of Halo Reach, and like I remember playing that. I forgot I even played that game, but I remembered the moment. And again, spoiler alert: like when you're on just the planet by yourself, and there's no way to leave, and you see the enemies coming, and you know you're not gonna make it. You know you're gonna die. You have the option to fight. It's futile.
And then it
just feels so heavy.
It's so they did something so similar, and I can't remember what came first, Crisis Core or Reach. I think Crisis Core, but like they're so far apart, like game wise, right? Like I think Crisis Core was 2009. I think Reach was 2010, maybe. They were like not super far off. I played it senior year of college, and I graduated 2012, so maybe 2011, 2012. But the way that you can still stand up and fight even if it's futile is so good in those games, you know. And it goes back to what we were saying about standing up to the little guy, even, or standing up to the big guy as the little guy. It doesn't matter how outnumbered you are or how you know, futile it is. They, you know, Zach and I think colloquially they call him Six, the person you play in Reach, because it's a inhabited character. But I think he is generally referred to as Six. It folds out in such a same way where, yeah, there's a battle and you can just sit there and die, and like the game's gonna end the same way. But like, who does that? No one does that. You fight. Like you fight till, you know, until you can't. And Crisis Core and Reach both do the same thing, where it's such a almost flawless transition between being mid combat into a cutscene that you cannot alter and you cannot fight against. And there's a scene in Crisis Core and a scene in Reach that are almost identical, where I just saw this in Crisis Core today, but as Zach, you're sitting on the ground in a Shinra, and you know, you're like looking up through Zach's eyes, like, so you're just seeing the sky on your screen, and then a Shinra grunt kind of comes into focus, and he just looks at you and just like cocks a gun, levels it at you, and shoots, and the screen goes to black. And it's almost the exact same thing as what happens with Six, but instead of a Shinra soldier, it's an elite, if I remember right, comes up and plasma guns you in the face or needles you in the face, and oh, it's just so good.
Yeah.
So
it's like
painful.
Weirdly satisfying. Yeah.
It's weirdly satisfying. Like, I feel like sometimes, like, if I had to pick one flaw in some modern storytelling, is that things sometimes get wrapped up too pretty and too perfect of a bow. And as nice as that is in a fantasy world, sometimes the legitimate feeling of helplessness coming all the way through and coming into fruition, because it is unfortunately in a lot of cases probably the most likely outcome, is so poignant and powerful. Because, like, yeah, of course Zach was gonna die. It was a literal army around him, you know. Of course Six was gonna die. A literal army around him, and you're alone, and everyone doesn't like you. and like, yeah, it's the only logical end. But obviously, you know, you kind of wait for that trope of, you know, the last minute escape, right? And I love when things hurt. And I don't know, maybe it's just some it's weird, like, locked away, like, sadomasochism I have or something, but like, just the when you feel something, like when you know, when it makes you like feel, like, cry or think, like, it just means that, like, I feel like it worked. Like, whatever the author, whatever the creator wanted to do, it worked, because, like, I sat and I cried into a microphone for several hours today, and, you know, in a couple weeks that episode's going to go out, and I'm going to get a whole bunch of messages from people that, you know, hopefully love the episode, knock on wood, and and, you know, it's gonna kind of be the same thing, the same feeling for me, I feel like, you know, where it's like, like, yeah, it hurt at the time and it was hard to do, but boy, I feel good about it now.
Yeah. Like, it's interesting. All this talk reminds me of, and I'm not gonna spoil this game because it's relatively new, but The Last of Us Part 2. That was a game that when I finally beat it, it was late at night. I was by myself, and I just felt the heavy weight of that game just sitting on me, and I not felt that way about any kind of form of media in recent years as I did that game. Like, being a part of that game, I think it's what's so special about video games, that it's getting better now, but I think still people look down on it, in a sense, is that you really do inhabit these characters in a sense that you are in this story, and like, much more so than just watching it vicariously like you would like a movie or a TV show, or even reading as a book. It's just so heavy in a way, and you have to sit with it, but you feel like you kind of grow from it. At least I did personally. I feel like I kind of grow from these things, so it's very interesting.
Absolutely. I just if you don't mind, one more like little thing on that.
Yeah.
One of my favorite book series when I was growing up was this series by Darren Shan called Cirque du Freak, and it's about vampires. And it's a kid's book. It's a kid's series. Probably, like, I would say age appropriate for like 12 and up. I have all of them on my Kindle. I will still go back and read them all the time. But they had probably the cruelest thing I've ever felt in reading a story in one of the later books. Is book 7. They have made you grow so attached to all the characters in the book series, right? And then one of them, and it's not the main character, but one of those characters starts falling, and he's a vampire, into a pit full of spikes during a fight. And it's part of the lore in the world. Like it's like maybe on our world, maybe not. Like they never like say like towns or cities or anything, or like anything that would like tell you if it's like Earth or not. So like they don't really do any of that. But like, you know, it makes sense in the context for them to be fighting in this arena that's filled with pits or with spikes. And he starts falling, and the chapter ends, and then the next chapter picks up, and the chapter picks up with a character that you haven't seen in 2 books swinging in out of nowhere and saving that character, and they go through a whole chapter of the outcome of what happens after that, and then the chapter ends again, and the next chapter just says, no, I wish I could say it was like that, but it wasn't. He fell, he died, and it was horrible. Yeah. And that's the exact quote, and I will never forget that quote. But it is phenomenal. Like it is so cruel to do, but like it was also just something that like when I read that, like he swung in, you know, like this character that you hadn't seen in a while, like swung in and saved him. I was like, yeah, okay, like I'll roll with it. Like, and then like the complete like 180 on that, I was like, you didn't need to do that. You could have just said he fell, you know. But he like the author like made this intentional choice of being like, no, like I want you to understand the gravity of what this death means, and I'm going to show you what this outcome would have looked like if he didn't die, but I need you to understand that part so I can tell you how horrible it is that he died.
Yeah. The weight of it.
Attention.
Yeah. It's so good. Ugh. I'm gonna go like I just want to like read and like watch movies and like imbibe all the story content I can right now.
Dreamcast and books.
Yeah, just like 3 video game consoles, like my iPad, like a book like stacked up on my shoulder.
He's gone for a month. No one knows what happens to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we could go on and talk for hours and hours. There's like so many games and stories I'm thinking of that are similar. But the last thing I want to ask, Kenny, is where can we find more of you? Where can we hear more of your beautiful voice? Where can we hear more of your love of stories? Where can we hear more of the things that you're creating in the world? I know you talked about it a little bit at the top, but I wanna hear your beautiful, passionate words.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. So once more, my name's Hanny. I'm a co-host on the First Encounter podcast. You can find us at firstencounterpodcast.com, or you can look up First Encounter Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're also on Twitter at 1STEncounterPod. Sorry. It was the only thing that was available and would fit. But firstencounterpodcast.com will get you pretty much anywhere you need to be for us. We also have a Patreon where we are continuing Final Fantasy VII compilation story. We just finished Crisis Core today. That episode should be coming out in about a month. And then we will be moving into whatever comes next. We actually let our patrons vote on it. So I don't know what's coming next from Final Fantasy VII compilation yet either. I think that's everything I wanted to say.
It's so good. I'm so glad you're on here. I know we've been talking about this for a while, so like I just like this has been so good to like reminisce. I just feel like I feel like it's 2000 again, and I'm kind of like, you know what I mean? Like just
I'm very content and very nostalgic right now.
I know. Yeah. I'm gonna play Majora's Mask. Let's see. Like, I want to play Halo Reach now.
My cup is full.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's been so good.
Well, thank you guys so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And anytime, just let us know. And get that scallywag co-host of mine on here too.
We will try. Sure. We will track him down and we'll get him on here, and he'll have to talk about video games and his feelings too.
You have to talk about these things. And if you ever need anything from us, please let us know. We'll always jump on and do something.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
If you want an episode of Majora's Mask, you let me know. I will be there in a heartbeat.
Let's go. I will be in contact. I have some ideas of things I want to do. Hopefully.
If I have to dress up, I'll do it. I'll do whatever you need me to do.
Awesome.
I'm trying to think of an embarrassing character I could cosplay as from Majora's
Tingle,
Mask.
of course.
I'll just be a doll
I was gonna
the whole time.
I was gonna say I would say Tingle, but Chris is very firmly involved in being Tingle,
true.
so I feel like he would have a little FOMO of not being Tingle.
It must be like just based on your pictures on your Discord, like he has Tingle, right? So like he has to be Tingle. You have creepy statue Link, so you can.
Just gonna like walk up to people and just be like, "You've met with a terrible fate," and just start shaking.
Yeah. I would call the Happy Mask Maker. I would be happy. I smile too much already, so that'd be great. Yep, that'd be fantastic. Or just the banker. I'm just constantly slapping my thighs, waiting for you to.
What you got? What you got? Oh man, you're gonna give me that much? When you say it like that, now I don't want it. That's weird.
It's super weird. Yeah, it's super duper weird. Oh no, this has been an awesome episode. Yes, please, everyone, Storygoers, if you have any room for any more podcasts, please check out First Encounter. Even if you don't have room, do it anyway, please.
Make room. Make
show
room.
them some love. Make room. Yes, as I am trying to do the same. So it's I know life is not easy sometimes to fit more things in it, but it's always worth it. So. But Ryan Haney, thank you for coming on today, obviously. And hopefully, Storygoers, you're doing well. Let us know what you think about Tales of Arcadia or any of the games that we've talked about today at talesfromthecartridge@gmail.com. All of the E's are 3's. We gotta get a better Gmail.
No, you can never change it.
Never change it.
Never change it. Chris and I we have to edit it out at this point because it's been so aggressive. There's so many times we'll just be like recording something and like we'll be like spelling something out and I'll just be like, all the E's are 3's, and it'll be like a word that has no E's in it at all.
I guess you're right. It should just become it's thing as it continues. I know there is probably someone out there that has written to us and forgot 1 3, and they probably think that we hate them and never read anything they ever sent in.
Love it.
But we hope everyone's doing well. Thank you again, Haney, for joining us, and we will see everyone in the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.